Hello, I'm Dr. Aruna Saman, and in this video, we are going to discuss few tools and techniques used in the application of biotechnology. The techniques we are going to discuss are going to be electrophoresis and polymerase chain reaction or PCR. We all know the macromolecules synthesized in the living cells are DNA, RNA, proteins, etc. They differ in their molecular weight, solubility, presence of charges, absorbance of light, etc. There are several techniques used for isolation and characterization of these macromolecules. The techniques which are especially based on molecular weight used for their separation are gel permeation, osmotic pressure, ion exchange chromatography, spectroscopy, mass spectroscopy, and electrophoresis. Let us discuss electrophoresis technique. The principle: on application of an external electric field, molecules separate along a gradient based on their size or molecular weight. The technique is used for the separation of DNA, RNA, and proteins. The DNA molecules are negatively charged, so on application of external field, they migrate from cathode to anode. In addition to that, small fragments of DNA molecules move faster and thus they separate faster, and this enables them to create a kind of a gradient based on their molecular size. The different methods of electrophoresis are agarose gel electrophoresis used for separation of DNA and RNA. Then there is PAGE polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis used for separation of proteins. And then SDS PAGE sodium dodecyl sulfate, once again used for separation of proteins. Here is an assembly used for electrophoresis. It has power supply for creating an electric field. The electric field is created in the layer of agarose gel in this tray. On the gel, electrophoretic buffer is also poured. This buffer transmits electric current to the gel and it also maintains neutral pH. Then there are two electrodes, the negative cathode and positive electrode anode. Then these are the wells here, the depressions. These are to pour the mixtures of the molecules to be separated by electrophoresis. When the power supply is made on, the external electric field is applied to the gel. The molecules present in the mixture poured in these wells, they start separating. Suppose the mixture is of gene segment. Then on application of electric field, the DNA segments start migrating from cathode towards the anode. They move with different speeds and travel different distances depending upon their molecular weight. They separate along the gradient from higher molecular weight to lower molecular weight, forming the series of bands. We can see many lanes here corresponding to each well in which the mixture for separation is poured. If two bands of separate lanes which end up at same distance from top are analyzed, then they show much similarity in their composition. This electrophoresis technique can be used by lab professionals in DNA analysis for DNA fingerprinting, antibiotic testing, vaccine testing, analysis of proteins and antibodies. Let us consider the next technique, and that is polymerase chain reaction. It is used for in vitro amplification, that is multiplication done in the laboratory outside the living cell of a DNA segment. Suppose this is a DNA molecule and it has this known DNA sequence, that is a gene, which is the gene of our interest. We want the multiple copies of this gene. Now we want these copies in vitro in the laboratory, and therefore we are using PCR technique. This technique was first developed by Karim Mullis, for which he is awarded Nobel Prize. This method involves thermal cycles. When first thermal cycle is conducted, we get 2 copies from the initial 1 DNA segment. At the end of the second thermal cycle, we get 4, and at the end of third thermal cycle, we get total 8 copies of DNA segment. Thus, the exponential manner, the number of DNA segment increases with every successive thermal cycle. Let us understand the mechanism of this polymerase chain reaction. The basic requirements of the PCR technique are the DNA segment that will undergo multiplication or amplification, then the primer molecules.' are small oligonucleotide molecules which contain 16 to 20 base pairs. They are complementary to the 3' end of the gene sequence to be amplified. They are of 2 types, forward and reverse. They are taken in excess quantity. They mark the region exactly to be amplified. Then there are deoxyribonucleotides. They are 4 types based on the 4 types of nitrogen bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. They are taken in large quantity because they will be the building blocks for the formation of new copies during the process of PCR. New copies of DNA molecules will be formed using these building blocks, that is deoxyribonucleotide phosphate molecules. And then Taq DNA polymerase. This enzyme is discovered in the strain of bacteria which was found in hot spring. The bacteria are Thermus aquaticus. The enzyme DNA polymerase present in them remains functional even at high temperatures. Its role is to link the deoxyribonucleotide phosphates, forming the new strands of DNA. That is the function of DNA polymerase, to link the D and TPS. And this all is taken, this mixture is taken in the buffer solution. To that, divalent cations are added and sterile deionized water is used. This all is taken in an Eppendorf tube, and this tube is then transferred into the PCR machine, which is also called thermal cycler. This is called thermal cycler because it conducts number of thermal cycles involving alternate raising and lowering of temperature. Let us understand one thermal cycle here. First step is rise in temperature up to 90 to 98 degrees Celsius. The step denaturation occurs, during which the 2 strands of DNA separate. The double-stranded DNA becomes single-stranded. Second step, lowering of temperature to 40 to 60 degrees Celsius. The step is called annealing. The primer molecules, they get attached to the 3' end of the separated strands of DNA, single-stranded DNA, especially at the region of the gene of interest. They get attached, the primer molecules. And then again, third step, rise in temperature. 70 to 75 degrees Celsius. The step is called extension or polymerization. And here the Taq polymerase connects the fresh deoxyribonucleotide phosphate molecules and the double-stranded DNA gets formed. This entire cycle, one cycle, takes 3 to 4 minutes. And such n number of cycles if are conducted, then 2 raised to n number of copies of DNA are produced. The thermal cycle, now the detailed steps we will study. The 90 to 98 degrees Celsius is the initial very high temperature. Denaturation step occurs. The two strands of DNA, they separate by breaking of hydrogen bonds. So double-stranded DNA has become now single-stranded DNA, and each single strand will act as a template. Against each single strand, the fresh deoxyribonucleotides will be collected and the double-stranded DNA will be formed. So this is the first cycle where the two strands, they separate and become single-stranded DNA. For this, very high temperature is required. Next is lowering of temperature, 40 to 60 degrees Celsius, annealing, the pairing of the primers to the complementary sequence of DNA. So here we can see the primer molecules got attached exactly at the 3' end of the single-stranded DNA. So they make the hydroxyl end of the 3' end available for Taq polymerase to add the fresh deoxyribonucleotide phosphates. So that is the primer molecules getting attached in the process of annealing at comparatively lower temperature. And then the next is again rise in temperature, 70 to 75 degrees Celsius. Extension, the Taq DNA polymerase is used and it goes on adding the fresh deoxyribonucleotide phosphate against the single-stranded DNA, and this single-stranded DNA becomes double-stranded DNA. So exact copies are produced. So Taq DNA polymerase will get attached here and it will produce fresh DNA molecule. Here Taq DNA polymerase, it will give rise to the fresh double-stranded DNA. The whole cycle gets completed in 3 to 4 minutes, and for if n cycles are conducted, 2 raised to n copies of DNA will be available. This is a chain reaction because the DNA generated, these are the new DNAs generated at the end of this cycle, and these DNAs will themselves be used as templates for replication in the next cycle, and this will be the chain reaction occurring in the subsequent cycles, and therefore this is called polymerase chain reaction. After completing the techniques, let us go to the biological tools. We are going to discuss here enzymes, cloning vectors, and competent host. Under enzymes, we will be having two different discussions, one on restriction enzymes and on the recognition sites. Let us talk first about the biological tool enzymes. The different enzymes used in biotechnology are lysozymes, DNA ligase, DNA polymerase, alkaline phosphatase, reverse transcriptase, nuclease, this we are going to consider in detail, exonuclease, endonuclease, the endonuclease which are called restriction endonuclease. The nuclease enzymes, they cut the phosphodiester bond of polynucleotide chains. So these are the regions where phosphodiester bonds between the phosphate and sugar group. So representative phosphodiester bonds are shown here. These are cut by nucleases. They are of two types, exonuclease and endonuclease. So suppose this is a DNA molecule which is going to be cut by nucleases at phosphodiester bond, then that cut can be towards the end of the strands in this manner, then they are called exonuclease. Or the cut can be given within the DNA strand in this manner, then they are endonucleases. The endonucleases, especially the restriction endonucleases. Why they are called restriction endonucleases? It is because they were found in the bacteria. These bacteria, when they were getting attacked by the virus, harmful virus, and these viruses were introducing the viral DNA in the bacterial body, then it was realized that these bacteria have the defense system against this viral DNA. The defense system means the nucleases present in them, nuclease enzymes. These enzymes recognize the short nucleotide sequence of the viral DNA which enter the bacterial cell. And what these nucleases do after recognizing the sequences, they cut that viral DNA into pieces, into fragments, and thus they restrict the potential harmful growth of this viral DNA. The restriction enzymes are thus molecular scissors because they are recognizing the specific sequence of nitrogen bases and they are cutting the DNA at or near those recognition sequences. They cut the phosphodiester covalent bond and hydrogen bonds, and the sites which they recognized are called recognition sequence or recognition sites. Let us now understand what these recognition sites are. These recognition sites are specific sequence of nucleotides which are identified by restriction enzymes. And when they identify them, they produce a double-stranded cut in the DNA. And these specific sequences which are identified by the restriction enzymes, these are called recognition sites. They differ widely with respect to their length. They have 4 to 8 nucleotide or base pairs. Many of them are palindromic. What's the meaning of palindromic sequence? It is a sequence in which the 5' to 3' base pair sequence is identical on both strands. Let us take this example here. 5' to 3' is this direction. What are the base pairs? Guanine, cytosine, adenine, thymine, and if we go on this strand, 5' to 3', again guanine, cytosine, adenine, thymine, same sequence of nitrogen base pairs from 5' to 3' direction on both strands, and that is called palindromic sequence. That is the peculiarity of recognition sites. Now we will understand how the restriction endonuclease enzyme give a cut at the recognition site, that is cleavage patterns. Suppose this is one recognition site. Now one way or one kind of pattern by which the cleavage occurs is, suppose here the cut is given on this strand, then on the opposite strand the cut is not exactly opposite to the first one. It is, you can say, a staggered cut, and as a result the actual separation of the strand occurs in this manner. Thus overhanging pieces of the separated strands where unpaired nitrogen bases are seen. So this kind of cut gives rise to sticky ends. Whereas we take another example here where this is the palindromic recognition sequence. Suppose cuts are given to the two strands of DNA, but these cuts are exactly in line with each other, and as a result actual separation when takes place, there are no unpaired strands of DNA here. There are no overhanging pieces, straight cut, and this is called blunt ends. So these are the two cleavage patterns, sticky ends and blunt ends. Here we will understand the different types of restriction enzymes found in different source organisms and their modes of action. So here restriction enzyme, first example ALU1. It is obtained from the source Arthobacter luteus, from its specific name first letter, from its generic name first letter, specific name first two letters. If there is any strain, then that strain letter is also used, and the which enzyme it is, first, second, third, isolated from this bacteria, that is mentioned here. So this is the first enzyme isolated from this bacteria, and this is the recognition sequence which is identified by this restriction enzyme, and cut given is a straight cut, and that gives rise to blunt ends. Let us take the next example, BAM-H1, B from this generic name, AM from specific name, H from the strain of that bacteria, and the first enzyme isolated. The identification recognition sequence and the staggered cut is given, giving rise to sticky ends. E. coli R1, Escherichia coli, and once again the staggered cut is given. This is the recognition sequence. Sticky ends are produced. HIND2, this is the recognition sequence. Straight cut is given. Blunt ends are produced. So the different restriction enzymes, they identify different recognition sequences, and either they give blunt cut or staggered cut, giving rise to blunt ends or sticky ends. Straight cut or staggered cut is given. The next biological tool is cloning vectors. Cloning vectors are DNA molecules, and they are used as vehicles to carry the gene of interest or foreign gene, and further in vivo amplification. In PCR, we have seen the multiplication of the DNA segment, but it was in vitro, in the laboratory, whereas here it is in the living cell in vivo. So here the DNA, the desired segment to be amplified, this desired segment is called passenger or foreign gene. We expect this to multiply. It is introduced in this cloning vector. What we are discussing, it's a DNA molecule, and as a result we get here the recombinant DNA. Cloning vector shows the property of replication. This cloning vector is introduced into a competent host cell, and this host cell undergoes multiplication, and the multiplication of this recombinant DNA takes place. So number of copies of this DNA segment get produced inside this cell. So this is done with the help of cloning vectors. Through cloning vectors, the segment of DNA is introduced into the host cell and multiplication is carried out. The different types of cloning vectors are plasmids, bacteriophages, cosmids, phagemids, bacterial artificial chromosomes, yeast artificial chromosome, mammalian artificial chromosome, transposons or jumping genes, and baculovirus. The most commonly used vectors are plasmids and bacteriophages. If we want to use any DNA molecule as a vector, then it should have certain properties. Let us understand what are the characteristics expected in the cloning vectors. There must be the origin of replication. This is the short sequence of nucleotides where replication starts. It is also responsible for controlling the number of copies produced of the linked DNA, the DNA which is linked to the ORI. How many copies will be produced, that is decided by ORI. Here in this picture, we can see the origin of replication in this vector. Then any piece of DNA which is attached to this ORI will get replicated in the host cell. A vector should always have selectable marker genes. They would identify the presence or absence of desired foreign gene, because foreign gene is introduced into this selectable marker gene region. These are usually ampicillin or tetracycline resistant genes, especially both are found in E. coli plasmid vectors. Here we can see the ampicillin resistant gene acting as a selectable marker. A vector must also contain unique recognition sites. We have seen many recognition sequences getting cut with blunt ends or sticky ends. So these are all the recognition sequences. At least some few are expected to be present in the cloning vector, and they should be preferably in the selectable marker gene. These recognition sites should be within the marker gene. Besides that, the vector should be able to easily introduce into the host cell. It should have suitable control elements like promoter, operator, ribosomal binding sites, etc. Here, a plasmid cloning vector, especially which is not naturally available and is designed in the laboratory by introducing the necessary features into it. This has origin of replication, but the antibiotic resistant selectable markers are introduced artificially. Ampicillin resistance and tetracycline resistant genes are introduced. Within these selectable markers, here you can see the recognition sites present, which are used for introduction of the foreign gene, the gene of interest. PBR322, PBR320, these are the constructed plasmids, and PBR322, this is constructed by Bolivar and Rodrigues, and in the series it is 322, and this is mostly used in the recombinant DNA technology. Now we are going to understand another plasmid vector which is commonly used in plants, and that is TI plasmid vector, tumor inducing plasmid vector. This is found in the bacteria Agrobacterium tumefaciens. The bacteria causes plant disease called crown gall, and the gene which is responsible for that disease is present in the plasmid, and therefore this plasmid is called TI plasmid. When the plant gets infected, it shows overgrowth or tumors. The genes or transposons called tDNA, which can insert copies of itself into the chromosomes of infected plants, are found on this plasmid. So here you can see tDNA, and in this region the gene responsible for that disease is present. So this is the DNA which makes copies of the part of the DNA which make copies of itself and transfers the gene causing disease into the plant. In the laboratory, the transposons with new desired DNA can be inserted. So this tDNA is used for insertion of the desired gene, because this tDNA is anyway going to get transferred to the plant to which it will infect. So along with this tDNA, the desired gene also will get transferred. So recombinant TI plasmid is usually produced by introducing foreign gene exactly in the region of the tDNA. The plant cell containing this tDNA then grown in the culture, and new plant is created from that cell by tissue culture technique, and thus transgenic plant gets produced. Thus this TI plasmid works as an important vector for carrying new DNA into many types of plants. Let us understand once again this entire process. Agrobacterium tumefaciens is a soil bacteria. It contains TI plasmids. It is called TI plasmid because it has a gene. This gene is tDNA. It has a recognizing sequence, and gene responsible for the disease is present in this tDNA. Now, if we want any desired gene to introduce into a plant variety, then that cannot be done directly. Suppose this is the plant where we want desired gene to introduce and create a transgenic plant. Directly this desired gene cannot be introduced in this plant. It is done using TI plasmid. So how it is done? This desired gene is first introduced into the tDNA region. See here, the desired gene is now in the tDNA region, and as a result, the recombinant TI plasmid got produced. Then this is introduced into the Agrobacterium tumefacium. This bacteria infects the plant cell, and as it has a tendency, the tDNA has a tendency to infect the plant cell, and as a result, along with the tDNA, the desired gene, this gene also goes into the chromosomes of that plant cell. So we find the desired gene now here in the chromosome of the plant cell. This plant cell is used in the tissue culture as initial material, and from that, when entire plant is produced, we find this gene or the character controlled by this desired gene has come into this plant. So we could introduce the desired gene through TI plasmid, which is found in Agrobacterium tumefacium. The competent host or cloning organism is another tool, biological tool, where once the desired DNA segment is inserted in the plasmid and forms the recombinant DNA, then we want multiple copies of it. And for that reason, it is introduced into a competent host. And this, once the competent host accepts it, then it is said to be transformed. The process is called transformation. The host then replicates the sequence of interest in the required amount. E. coli is used most commonly for the transformation with recombinant DNA. But other competent hosts are also available, such as Bacillus haemophilus, Helicobacter pyrrole, Agrobacterium tumefacium. Here we can see the process, how the competent host cell goes on producing multiple copies, and we get amplification of the recombinant DNA. Thus, we have discussed in this video the technique of electrophoresis, the technique of polymerase chain reaction, biological tool enzyme, where we have understood the restriction endonuclease enzyme, and we also understood the recognition sites of these enzymes. Then we understood the biological tool cloning vector and the biological tool competent host organism. Thus, we have come to the end of our discussion on tools and techniques of biotechnology. Thank you.